I'm back to read chapter 16. Sorry I didn't post yesterday. The camera died in the middle and then I had technical difficulties. So we're gonna try again today. Chapter 16, cheap soap, burned oil, and onions. Sounds like a yummy combination. The boys had to go twice around the State Archives building on the Forum before they found on a quiet side lane the entrance to the censor's office. At the door stood an armed guard, a tough-looking young man. "What are you kids after?" he asked harshly. Mucius repeated the formula they had decided on. "We must speak to the censor's officials," he said as innocently as possible. "What's your business with them?" the guard asked, leaning indifferently against the wall. He took off his helmet and wiped his brow, for the day had grown rather warm. "We are bringing an important message," Mucius lied with a straight face. "A sensational story," Antonius added, nodding vigorously. "Do you have credentials?" the guard asked, plunking his helmet on his head. "We don't need any," Mucius said. "The story is about us." "Then go to the devil," the guard said without interest. The boys retreated to a shady corner under the colonnades of the State Archives building where they could all keep an eye on the guard. Their plan had fallen flat. By all their calculations, the guard should have admitted them when they claimed to have important news. Now they would have to think of something else. Caius, whom they had taken along on a probation basis, suggested pushing the guard aside and running into the building. "If you don't care to try it, I'll do it by myself," he said, throwing fierce looks at the brawny fellow lounging in the doorway. "You think you're a Hercules?" Publius scoffed. "No violence," Mucius said. "That would spoil everything. We must use our heads." Julius nodded. "Let's tell him the truth," he proposed, rubbing his nose thoughtfully. "You do that," Mucius decided. They approached the entrance again. The guard had sat down on the base of a column and was lovingly polishing his sword, which already gleamed like a metal mirror in the sunlight. He looked up in surprise as the boys trooped up to him once more. "So you're here again," he said. "We have a great favor to beg of you," Julius began flatteringly. "Yes?" the guard asked skeptically. "Listen, kids, I'm just on guard here. I can't do anything for you." "We would not ask you to," Julius said, standing on his dignity. "All we want to do is check something with the official who takes the late news at night." "Do you mean Megabates?" the guard said. "Yes, he's the one we mean," Publius grinned. "A Greek, isn't he?" Mucius asked quickly. He recognized Megabates as a Greek name. "Can we see him?" Julius asked. "Megabates isn't around yet," the guard replied. "He's on night duty, so he gets his sleep in the morning." "He doesn't live far from here, does he?" Julius asked at a hazard. "If you knew him so well, you must know his address too," the guard asked slyly. "Of course we know his address," Antonius burst out. "It just slipped our minds. Sometimes we almost forget where our school is." The guard laughed. He liked the boys. It wasn't too long ago since he himself had played hooky from school on a spring day. "Megabites lives in a house on Patrician Street, right around the corner of Subura," he said. "But now clear out of here," he roared good-naturedly and jokingly raised his sword. "Thank you very much," the boys called out as they ran off in high spirits. They turned round the corner and once more were in the Forum. The big square was swarming with people who had been lured out by the warmth of this first real spring day. The sun was shining, the sky was a brilliant blue, and a gentle breeze which smelled of spring blew from the south. Everybody looked happy, and the dazzling white togas and tunics the people showed they had fetched out their finest clothes to celebrate such a fine day. But the boys weren't out for a leisurely promenade. They plowed their way through the crowd, using their elbows to good purpose. As they pushed on, Mucius glanced at the gloomy city jail at the foot of the Capitol. "There's where Rufus is," he said, stopping in his tracks. The others stared at the prison. "It must be awful in there," Flavius murmured. "The prisoners are kept underground," Antonius said. "Maybe we could dig a tunnel and free Rufus," Caius proposed. Publius laughed at him. "Where would you start to dig?" he asked. "Right here in the Forum, in front of the whole world?" Caius took offense. "All you can ever do is make silly jokes," he snorted, starting towards him. "It's just that you're too dumb to understand them," Publius retorted, clenching his fists. "Shut up," Mucius warned, stepping between them. "People are staring at us. If you want to fight, do it when you're alone." The boys moved on. They made their way to the Senate building, took a less crowded side street, and soon reached the gorge known as Subira. As they approached the corner of Patrician Street, they saw the building the guard must have referred to. It was a shabby 5-story tenement. The lower story consisted entirely of wretched little stores, mere niches in the building, with goods spread out on the sidewalk. On the corner was a barber's tooth. The barber was standing in the street, cutting customers' hair with an enormous pair of shears. The man sat submissively on a stool, and a group of street boys stood around, following the proceedings with interest. Next door, there was a butcher shop. The meat hung on big hooks set into the wall. Then came a booth with the goat's head carved in stone above the entrance, indicating that this is where milk was sold. After that came a laundry, a vegetable shop, and a dirty tavern. The boys wondered how to get into the building, since they saw no entrance. Finally, Mucius asked the barber where the door was. "Around the back," the barber said, jerking his shears over his shoulder towards Patrician Street. At the corner of the building, the boys struck a narrow, well-trodden path, evidently much less used by the rightful inhabitants of this place. This path led into the backyard, and from there, the tenement did not look quite so ugly as from the front. Along all the stories ran roofed galleries from which, at intervals, tiny open balconies projected. Assorted potted plants set forth vines and greenery which jutted and trailed over the railings of the balconies. Wooden steps led from the yard up to the galleries. The yard itself was paved with large flagstones, and there was a fountain in the center of it. Off to one side, 3 small girls were jumping rope. They stopped playing when the well-dressed boys came in and gaped in wonder. The boys strolled toward the building and took the staircase, whose steps were worn smooth by much traffic. "I'll bet nothing but criminals live here," Antonius said. "You're letting your imagination run away," Julius said. "This is the kind of place where craftsmen, shopkeepers, and freed slaves live. The majority of them are Greeks and Arabs. They are not criminals." This was the first time the boys had ever entered a tenement house, and they felt like explorers. On the lowest gallery, they stopped in confusion. A number of doorways covered only by curtains led to the interior of the building. From behind those curtains, they could hear all sorts of noises: dishes rattling, children whining, shrill women's and horsemen's voices quarreling. Dogs were barking, and somewhere a young man was crooning a sentimental song. There was a smell of cheap soap, burned oil, and onions. "I feel sick to my stomach," Flavius murmured. "No backing down now," Mucius said. "We'll never find megabytes in this hive," Flavius said. "We'll have to ask," Mucius said, and boldly pushed aside the nearest curtain. They found themselves looking into a tiny kitchen. A sturdy woman was standing over a steaming trough, scrubbing clothes on a wooden board. She looked up, her face flushed with heat and annoyance, and shouted, "Get out of here, you rascals!" The boys hastily withdrew. A little old man, clad in rags, along the gallery toward them, walking unsteadily. The boys approached him. "Where does Megabytes live?" they asked. The old man chuckled and started to babble at great length. The boys did not understand much as a syllable of his speech. He smelled strongly of wine, which made them uneasy, but he seemed to be eager to help, for he went on chattering and pointing upward with a dirty finger. "I guess Megabytes lives further up," Mucius said to his friends. "But where?" Publius asked. "On the roof?" "Wait, I have an idea," Julius said, turning to Publius. "Do any of you happen to have a charcoal pencil with you?" "I do," Publius said, producing one from the pocket of his tunic. Julius took possession of the pencil and went over to the wall, calling, "Hey you," to the old man. The man looked at him with a vacant smile. Julius waved the pencil in the air to hold the old fellow's attention, and then drew on the wall a staircase, and after that put a large question mark. The old man realized what Julius wanted, took the pencil from him, and made 5 long dashes beside the question mark. Under these, he placed 3 small dashes. Then he pocketed the pencil and reeled off down the stairs. The boys saw him staggering across the yard, heading for the tavern. "My pencil!" Publius protested. "Let him keep the pencil," Mucius said. "The old boy has done us a service." "How come?" Caius wanted to know. "What are those marks supposed to mean?" The others laughed at his slowness. "Megabytes lives on the 5th floor, you idiot," Julius explained. "But what are the 3 small dashes for?" Flavius asked. "Maybe the 3rd door?" Mucius said hopefully. He had guessed right, for now they noticed that all the doorways were numbered. They climbed the wooden stairs to the 5th gallery. where they stopped in front of the door marked 3. Mucius pounded his fist against the curtain, but this action produced no sound at all, merely a dense cloud of dust. Then he called out, "Does Megabytes live here?" Whereupon a cross voice replied, "Come in." "I don't think we need to take our sandals off here," Mucius whispered to the others as they entered. Apparently, the newspaperman's job was not very highly paid. Megabytes' apartment consisted of a single, poorly furnished, windowless room. In one corner was a small open fireplace in which a fire was burning. In the other corner, a straw pallet lay on the floor, probably the bed. Along the walls were nails from which hung clothing and blankets. Megabytes was seated at the table with a steaming bowl of peas and sausage, which he was eating slowly. Beside the bowl lay a large piece of bread and a broad-bladed, dagger-like knife. The censor's official was a rather pinched-looking elderly man whose pointed gray beard reminded the boys of Xanthippus. He went right on with his meal. Finally, he growled with a full mouth. "Who are you?" "Are you Megabytes?" Mucius asked. "What do you want?" "We have something very important to discuss with you," Mucius said. "I am Megabytes, but I cannot discuss anything now," Megabytes growled, completely absorbed in his peas and sausage. "Forgive us for disturbing you, but we are in a great hurry," Mucius apologized. "I'm in a hurry too," Megabytes said. "I must get to my office. Come back tomorrow." This seemed to settle the affair as far as he was concerned, for with his fingers he lifted another chunk of sausage to his mouth. Mucius did not give up. "We only wanted to know whether you received the news reports the night before last at the censor's office," he said. "I did," Megabytes said indistinctly, his mouth full. "What concern of it is yours?" "We should like to know who the courier was who brought the item about the desecration of the temple," Mucius said. "That's confidential information," Megabytes said curtly. He sharpened the knife on the edge of the bowl and cut himself a thick slice of bread. "Please tell us," Mucius pleaded. "Who are you, anyway?" Megabytes demanded. "Mucius, Marius, and Mucius, Marius, Domitius." Megabytes looked up, startled. "Domitius? Are you by chance related to His Excellency, the Honorable Tribune Domitius?" "He's my father," Mucius said as modestly as possible. Megabytes jumped up, choked down his mouthful of bread, and bowed low. "Forgive me, young sir. Why didn't you say so at once? Has your father sent you?" Mucius nodded. A lie at a time like this didn't really count. After all, his friend's life was at stake. "My father is Senator Vinicius," Caius blurted out. Megabytes bowed to him also. Of course, he stammered, confused. "Any information which is in my power to give," he agreed eagerly. "Let me think. Night before last. The report on the desecration of the temple. Ah, yes, I remember now. The courier came rather late, around the 4th hour of the night." The boys threw significant glances at one another. Xanthippus had guessed correctly. "He brought a sealed letter," Megabytes continued, with the words "very urgent" on the outside. "I opened the letter and found the report on the desecration of the temple. It was written in shorthand, but it was long, extremely long, and therefore a great nuisance to us. I personally would have liked to have told the other courier to get out." "Why didn't you?" Antonius asked. "Why, how could I do that?" Megabytes exclaimed in alarm. "The courier was sent by His Excellency ex-consul Tellus." "Ex-consul Tellus?" the boys cried in amazement. "Yes," Megabytes said, "by ex-consul Tellus in person." And that's the end of chapter 16. Sorry about the squeaky toy in the background. Tomorrow's chapter is 17, A Certain Guest.